In this module, we'll investigate the terms least cost routing and tail end hop-off. Least cost routing is all about avoiding or at least minimizing service provider call charges. Dave and Nath both work for a big multinational corporation. When Dave calls Nath, the New York routing service, an IPPBX or some kind of session manager server, decides how to route the call based on rules configured in its dial plan. One option is to route the call through the New York SIP trunk to the telephone service provider, through the TSP network, crossing perhaps multiple tariff points as it goes, all the way to the Hong Kong office and over internal IP to Nathan's phone. Alternatively, if the enterprise has a leased IP connection between the two offices, the New York routing rules could direct the call straight to Hong Kong without even touching the TSP network, passing no tariff points and incurring no call charges. Let me think. A long-distance call over the public network, one that I'll pay for, or a zero-cost call over the internal network? Of course, the internal option wins. Least cost routing is all about configuring dial plan rules that direct calls over routes that incur the least call charges. Now, many calls will be to regular phones not part of the internal network. Here, the aim is to route the call as far as possible over internal IP and then hop off to the TSP for the last hop, something known as tail end hop-off. Whoever configures the rules needs knowledge of the network's routing servers, the SIP trunks and the gateways, the international dialing codes for commonly dialed surrounding countries, and of the tariffs of each of the service providers. Then, with that information, he manually configures dial plan rules to direct calls over the cheapest routes. So, to route a call with the least cost from Dave to a regular phone in Singapore, there'd need to be a rule that says something like, route any number beginning with 0065 to the Hong Kong SIP trunk. The call then incurs charges only between Hong Kong and Singapore rather than New York and Singapore. Now, with so many countries, never even mind cities, dial plans can become vast and complex, particularly if attempts are made to cater for every possible call to every possible location. A good starting point is to analyse the calls made, identify the locations most often dialed or that incur the most costs, and then configure rules to reroute those calls. Dial plans should then also implement a final catch-all rule that routes everything else out over the TSP. For example, Narvik is a small town in remote Norway. It's never had a call ever from anyone in the organisation, so doesn't warrant a special dial plan. After all, if Dave suddenly calls a Narvik number, well, even though there are no rules for Narvik specifically, it does match the final catch-all rule. The number starts with 0, so it's sent out to the TSP locally to be routed all the way to Narvik over the public telephone network, incurring costs as it goes. The key thing is to reduce costs of the high-volume, expensive calls that cost the corporation so much. Other isolated calls are, in comparison, insignificant. Now, the rates of some TSPs vary at different times of the day, perhaps one being cheaper at night than the other. Accordingly, some routing servers will include a time of day option in their routing rules, enabling us to perhaps route through one provider during the day and another during the night. Now, when I first heard of least cost routing, I remember thinking it was some amazing service that almost magically, dynamically, in real time went out and automatically detected the cheapest routes. Switch it on and watch your phone bill fall. It's not, at least not that I know of yet. The only magic in least cost routing is the skill of the administrator who collates all the data and configures the rules. So, in summary, least cost routing is intelligent routing of calls over routes that avoid call charges. The aim is to reduce costs by routing calls as much as possible over internal IP then hop off to the fee-based public telephone network at the far end, something known as tail-end hop-off. Least cost routing is implemented through dial plan rules on routing servers, that's IPPBXs or session manager type servers. Some administrator somewhere obtains knowledge of all the organization's SIP trunks and gateways, the different telephony service providers and their rates, and the dialing codes, the dial patterns for the most frequently dialed and most costly calls. He then configures dial plan rules to route such calls over the cheapest routes.